Wow, thank you, Lance, for the wonderful prelude music that put us all in the mood for a high energy service. And the crowd goes wild. Um, welcome to this New Thought service. My name is Stephen. And if you would just take a thoughtful moment to maybe silence your cell phones right now, and so we're not interrupted later. So let's drop right into a space of inspiration, peace, and love with a reading from the Science of Mind magazine. Pasha McGregor will read that for us.
So this is actually the reading from yesterday, but I think it kind of goes nicely with today's theme. It may be that some little root of the sacred tree still lives. Nourish it then, that it may leaf and bloom and fill with singing birds. That's a quote from Black Elk. And from Ernest Holmes, this is the quote: "We learn that persistent, constructive thought is the greatest power known and the most effective." And the essay for this day is the topic is resilience, residing in resilience. Thinking of resilience reminds me of an apple tree that fell down on our property after a heavy snow. Obviously, I didn't write this. It's a Science of Mind practitioner or minister wrote the essay. So this apple tree fell down after the heavy snow. We were sad, and it certainly seemed like the tree would not live. Then a gardener propped it back up for us, and I prayed a lot. Today it lives and flourishes. Each summer, apples and birds grace the branches. Deer come to munch on its fruit. It fills our view with its abundance of life. It is a reminder of God's limitless potential and healing love. Isn't this like when we are drained emotionally, devoid of energy, feeling like we can't go on? Or worse yet, isn't this how we feel if diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, or if a dear loved one passes? Things may seem hopeless. We can be filled with dread and angst, struggling against the depths of sadness and hopelessness. We can fall down and need loving support to grow again. With some hope, affirmative prayer, a little faith, and a big dose of love, we end up thriving with purpose once more. This is the affirmation. I'll read the whole thing once and then in small parts so that you can repeat it. I am deeply grateful for the resilience that comes from knowing God is in charge and I can trust that every situation is filled with purpose. So I am deeply grateful for the resilience that comes from knowing God is in charge. And I can trust that every situation is filled with purpose. And I can trust that every situation is filled with purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Pasha. Interesting concept that everything is filled with purpose, even mistakes and seemingly not so nice things. And what's that purpose? Uh, I think it's always the same one: wake up. So I don't have any apple trees here, but I just got a egg fruit tree that was crushed by another falling tree and broke it right in half. And it was a young tree, and so I duct taped the trunk back together, and we'll see how that goes. Uh, right now, we need to lighten up this energy in the planet, and so I would like to have Lance play another song that will brighten us up. That's okay. Take your time. Silence is golden.
I look at you all, see the love that is sleeping, while my guitar gently weeps. I look at the floor and I see me sweeping, still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know why nobody taught you how to unfold your love. I don't know how someone controlled you. They bought and sold you. Oh. I look at the world and I notice it's turning. Still my guitar gently weeps. With every mistake we must surely be learning. Still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know how you were diverted, you were perverted too. I don't know how you were invited, no one alerted you. I look Can't you all see the love that's sleeping while my guitar gently weeps? I love you all. Still my guitar gently
Thank you, Lance. So now you know our musician was Lance, but I did not introduce our guest speaker for today at the beginning. Our guest speaker today is Michael Hemmat. And did I pronounce the last name right? Hemmat. And he's going to be speaking to us on being a light bearer and many other things. So I will introduce Michael more fully a little bit later in the program. Right now, would like to do an opening prayer for this service. And when I say prayer, it's more about attitude adjustment. And there's lots of different ways to adjust your attitude, as we all know. But let's take a moment to add some light to all the darkness out there in this world's condition. So let's join together as a group and practice some ho'oponopono, which goes by the name of also of forgiveness. And if we all want to make a difference in making this place a better world, I think at least most of us do. And for instance, like, oh, would it be nice to have peace in the Ukraine? And so the way to do that, really, according to the Course in Miracles, or many, actually all the different traditional paths, is through forgiveness and understanding what forgiveness actually is and being willing to change our minds. So find something or somebody that could use forgiveness in your mind, whether it's Putin or your significant other or your dog. I don't know. We all get mad at something and have a grievance with it. Maybe even yourself, right? Because you're just not up to snuff that you should be. And but just be willing to release it, to let it go, for restoring love and peace within and without, and that includes the whole planet. So I would like to share a couple of sentences from the Course in Miracles. It goes, one of the holiest spots on all the earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. What hatred has released to love becomes the brightest light in heaven's radiance, and all the lights in heaven brighter glow in gratitude for what has been restored. So together as a group, let's take a couple of moments out of time right now, and there is no time anyway. So let's take a couple of moments to let our lights shine out in the darkness. Forgiveness is the only real way to make the world a better place. So if you make yourselves comfortable and settle down, and I'll ring the gong again. So pick something out to forgive for a few moments and see how that feels. Just be willing to let it go. Mm. Well, here we are again. I think forgiveness really means you just realize there's really nothing to forgive, because behind it all, only perfection is reality. So, a little bit about New Thought. Instead of getting too much into the history, yes, we were once a Science of Mind church and evolved from that. And we've been here quite a while, since the 70s. And um, this is a sanctuary of aloha. But what does New Thought itself really stand for besides the history? And it's really only replacing our old thoughts or old stinking thinking with a greater understanding. And this understanding is knowing that forgiveness, trust, and kindness in thought, word, and action will make the lives of us better. It's just getting it, yeah. New Thought is a combination of a lot of different spiritual traditions that teach all of the above, which is just be nice, play nice, and share your toys. Everything you were supposed to learn in kindergarten. Um, so, what more needs to be said about New Thought? I don't. So, let's get to know each other better now by going around the room, introducing ourselves, and briefly answer a question in one or two sentences. And the question is, can I have the envelope, please? If you could create or be something that would make this world a better place, what would that be? Or what would it look like? And we don't have too big a crowd, so, but just don't go on for 15 minutes. One or two sentences would apply. You could even say, oh, I'd be more happy or whatever's true for you. I'm going to pass the mic around, and I'm not sure where to start, but did you hear that? Okay, are you willing to be the
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Grace. What first came to mind was to have more integrity in my inner calling. That's how I feel like I could make the world a better place.
Hi, I'm Momi. To be honest, my first thought was just to be myself, just to keep on keeping on.
I'm Margie, and I really want to be able to evolve from the primates into the super primates who are humans.
White horse. Good question. Yeah, for myself, it's yeah, really doing what I sought out to do, make my achievements happen, um, and yeah, creating more spirituality in the earth. I think for the planet, if we can come into our hearts more and connect with the earth more, with each other, that's that's one there. I feel.
I am Jatayu. I'm wearing Zelensky's colors. Zelensky. Enlightenment, awakening, spiritual peace, love, truth, and healing. Forgiveness of my enemies, to help them be kinder, like Judas, developing a conscience of what he did. So I sent a message to Putin. Take it easy. I sent him the message over there. He's over there. Take it easy. Take it easy. A little bit of kindness won't hurt you. It will be written about you. He had a little bit of kindness in his heart.
Hey, my name's Marshall. I was thinking about hitting the gym and joining the Avengers.
I'm Ellie. The same thing came to me that I would be me.
Mhm.
Oh, nice. I'm Lance, and ironically, I personally need to kind of let go of this idea of helping the world for my path. And yeah, also be me. I like that theme. And work on listening to others around me and communicating better.
I'm Shauna. The first thing that came to my mind was for myself to become more patient and gentle with my own process, which will in turn make me more patient and gentle with the people around me, and emanating that in my life and in my field so that other people can feel supported and loved from just being around me.
I'm Annie. And the thing that came to my mind first was to continue to try to be a peacemaker in all of my daily relationships with others. And another thing that came to my mind was to strengthen my tolerance for other people's points of view.
I'm Gary. I'm Gary, and what I guess I'm thinking of is I had a promise to myself as a youth, which I am still trying to carry out, um, which is to never ever let go of my optimism, um, and to see if I can hand that off, even though I'm often on the other end of that spectrum.
I'm Terry. What comes to me is to be more of a volunteer.
I'm Sharon, and when I heard the question, I was thinking anything. So I was thinking unlimited resources to try and just help, mainly from school age on, to just start a program where each child is thought of as their authentic self, is accepted and loved as they are, and then yeah, just modeling loving kindness and making that more important than anything else in the curriculums.
Oh, I'm Patty, and oh, okay. Well, my first thought was that I would like to follow the golden rule and wish everyone else would.
I'm Pasha, and I would like to slow down my mind and be more fully present in each moment and be a better listener.
Thanks. I think we got everybody. Is your mic on? Or, oh, somebody just showed. So the question was, how could you, if you want to help make the world a better place than it is today, basically, what would you do? What would that look like? Or what would you be, um, in a brief answer, not too technical, but just relax.
My name's Jeremy, excuse me, and I would think to recharge myself so that I can emanate good good vibrations to other people.
Great answer. Hi.
Hi, I'm Ramona, and I've spent a good part of my life in the role of a teacher with young children, and I am so inspired by children. Um, Sort of like the younger they are, I feel like the more closer to source, they still are. And so I love their innocence and their humor and their ability to see. They just came from the stars, basically, according to my native tradition. And we all have that bit of star energy in us. and children remind us of that. So I would like to always support children and to be around them, to learn from them, and to be able to carry that with me so that whatever it is I have, um, my belief is that everything starts from here. And so anything that we can do with a clear mind and a loving heart uh, would be really helpful to the planet. Yeah. My aloha to everybody.
Thank you, Ramona. Michael, is your mic on?
Mic is on.
I don't hear it.
You don't hear it? Can you hear me? No. Nope. Okay, thank you. No? Okay. I'd like to echo a lot of the sentiment already. I think that being more authentically myself is the most important thing that I can do, and I think a lot of us actually really know that already. And so it's more than being myself, but to stay focused as myself, and to not get seduced by all the indulgences that come through life.
Great answer. Thank you. We'll work on that, Mike. Um, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Could be an answer could be just as simple as, "Oh, I'd like to be happier," because then, it would infect everybody else with happiness. And it goes so deep, though. Like, what is, what is happiness? It's like really, it's happiness is knowing the truth. So, and how you fit into it. So I'm just working on that too, and having faith that the truth is real. I mean, we're not just stuck on this planet in a ball of dust and in these bodies. So now we're going to ask if any of you would like to share some happy happenings in your life. We call it the segment Miracles and Ordinaries. Just good stuff that just seems to happen right out of the blue. Uh, Definitely qualifies. Or if you just, are really happy the way something turned out. So, um, are there any of you out there today who would like to share a nice event? I'm sure something has actually happened that was good. Um, in my own life, it's kind of a miracle. All the chickens are gone around my house. I don't know what happened to them all, but there's no roosters and nobody digging up my garden. So, and I don't know why. Pasha, do you have a miracle?
Um, I just like to share my appreciation of Annie Bertram, who's been a blessing to our New Thought community for several years, and Gary as well. And this is the last Sunday that they'll be able to be sitting here on the lanai for a while because they're embarking on a new adventure and moving to Michigan. And I was I couldn't quite believe it was real when Annie, especially when she said she was willing to serve on the board, because she lives down in Naalehu. And for me, having lived on the island for decades, it's like, for me, I have this perception that if it takes me 25 minutes to get somewhere, that's kind of a long drive. So, but Annie just had the island consciousness. So it's like, even if it was a bit of time in the car, she lives on this island and she didn't let, the constraints of time limit her from being where she wanted to be. And where she wanted to be was very frequently at New Thought Center. And so thank you so much and best wishes for your new life in Michigan. And you have a welcome back here anytime.
Well, I'd like to share a miracle. Speaking of moving to Michigan, oh, I'm Annie, and here with my beloved Gary. And yeah, boy, when I first kind of laid out all of the tasks that had to be accomplished, both to sell our home, we had a few more, well, kind of a lot more repairs to do before we could sell it. And just ending the school year, we're both teachers, and getting everything ready to move, and then also obtaining a rental while our house is being built in Michigan, and just getting the cars shipped across and driving the car all the way across the country a couple weeks ago, being sick. Um, I just thought at first, gosh, this is such an insurmountable amount of tasks that have to be accomplished. And every time I started to feel overwhelmed, I thought, okay, just take it one step at a time, one task at a time, and it's all going to work out. And every time that I kept that in my mind that everything was going to turn out great, each little task did turn out great. And we have a few more little things to figure out, but I just know in my heart that it's the right reasons to be with family and grandkids, and everything's going to turn out just great. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Annie. And we'll miss you, but I'm sure somehow we'll still be in touch. Yeah. So, do you want to share? Kandor? Jatayu? Jatayu. Please step up and give us the good news.
And my miracle today is I've got to count on the new faces I've seen that bless us with your presence. You, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10. Blessings for us, for you attending our spiritual unity. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jatayu, for acknowledging that. Yeah, and then, like I'm seeing a lot of new faces that we don't always get. So we're really glad you're here and appreciate that. Now we've got a super special musical treat. So if you'd like to relax, we're gonna hear some didgeridoo music, and just for a second, close your eyes when he starts playing, and we've got something in store for you. Like it's gonna sound like you're gonna go, "Wow, where is that coming from?" So go ahead, close your eyes, and Lance, you can start. And could you get the mic, Jeff, for so that it's close to the didge? Or I guess not. All right. All right. Okay, that was different. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. But it's always good to like to have something new. You haven't really probably experienced that before. At least I haven't. Okay, I get to introduce Michael now. Um, he's Michael's going to be sharing with us today his experiences and insights from at least 10 years of shamanic work, in which is, in his words, is for the expansion of awareness. And Michael started out at the age of 19 while attending university for engineering. He earned a MS in optical engineering, but he felt like he was living two lives, one being the recommended track that society thinks you should be doing, and the other was the calling of his spirit. Then after 10 years of that, he fully committed to the spiritual side, the calling, focusing on healing himself and influencing others to heal. And this is taking many forms in his Kulyana, such as hospice volunteering, mentorship of teenage boys or men, and breath, breath work facilitation. And today, Michael is going to share his inspiration from this. So now, please welcome Michael. And did we ever get the Michael's mic going? Battery. Wait. Now it's green. Test. Is it hooked up? Are you guys hearing anything? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the battery. It went red again.
How's that? Everyone hear me? Okay, great. So thank you for having me. It's good to be back at New Thought. Um, some of you that have been here for a while know that um, prior to COVID, I was doing breathwork facilitation here, and that was a really profound experience for me in my process of being a facilitator in the larger community. Prior to that, I had been doing a lot more individual work, and so coming here and having this opportunity to be in part of this community was instrumental in getting me into the broader community. And as a very, very important side note, it was um, shortly after Shauna and I started dating was when I started doing the group sessions here. And for all of Shauna's good qualities, I saw a completely different side of her when we were doing this breath work, because without any provocation on my part, I could see the natural healer in her emerge, and it opened up my perception of her and our relationship in a completely different way, and seeing how that potential and all that meaning was going to evolve. And I do talk a bit about that in the book. Now, Shauna is kind of shy, so can we all just look at her for a moment and send her some love? Thank you, Shauna. um, so I wrote a book, and the initial purpose of all the writing was not to put my story out in a certain sense of uh, diminishing the ego and becoming integrated with all of reality. To write a book about myself is kind of ironic, right? It's like, look how special I am. It's something silly like that. And so that was never the purpose. The purpose was originally through the process of recapitulation, such that I would go with a very fine tooth comb through all the experiences of my life and look at everything and say, am I actually complete with this event? This fight that I had, oh, that was so long ago, I don't care anymore. But really looking at each individual event, going all the way back into my infancy, um, and saying, is this actually complete? Am I done with this? Is there any emotional charge left here? And a few things, it turned out that there were interesting stories, events that were meaningful, but I didn't realize that the charge had been dissipated until I was even maybe most of the way through editing. And I'm like trying to put this story together in a way, and and just as it's like, oh, it's not coming together, and it's like, that's always the indication that there's still a blockage. If the story's not quite coming together, it's because there's a blind spot. And so even doing the editing later on, way later on, it still helped me to see in these little parts that of me that were stuck. And so that was the original motivation to get all this stuff in writing. And I figured, the misunderstandings of a child are not particularly important to other people. So I condensed the material of the book to the last roughly 10 years, just to make it more relatable and interesting, I think. And so that was the real motivation for writing the book, is not to aggrandize myself, but to kind of just put this material out there for other people to experience it. And the other big thing, I think, is when the mind opens, a lot of unusual things happen. And if you don't have proper support, you can feel like you're going nuts. And I went through a lot of that, feeling like reality was shredding, not dissolving as if it's going away, but warping around me. And it was really hard to feel like I'm not just becoming a cliche that someone just lost their mind and then becomes an unproductive member of society and so forth. So I felt like it was really important to to share my story and the breadth of all of my experiences, so that someone else who's going through the same thing can read this and say, oh, this may not be exactly what I experienced, but I get that, and I understand that, and it makes me feel more confident in trusting these experiences that I've had personally. So let's see. On that note, I think that I try to be very, very careful with all the material that's in there, that there is no embellishment, because you can read something and say, oh, he's just telling a story, or he's exaggerating, or anything like that that can diminish the power of these particular visions and experiences. And it's important to emphasize that there's no embellishment or hyperbole at all, because it doesn't need it. It doesn't need to be embellished. And even with things that I'm, having been part of the spiritual community for a long time, there's a lot of things that I'm very aware of, but I would never write about it, only because I don't feel like I have enough personal, direct knowledge of that thing. So a good example is auras. Like, everyone here has probably heard of auras. I've heard about it for decades. I could probably talk for hours on theory, but I don't, for whatever reason, particularly experience auras with myself or other people. I do, however, experience the chakras. The energy centers that I have directly seen and worked with, I own that knowledge, so I feel comfortable talking about that, but not auras. And I'm try to be very careful about only discussing things that I am confident that I own that. So one last thing about just the way the book is written is, there's a lot of ways that we try to crack the shell of the mind in order to open it up to greater awareness. And certain practices are very intense, to say the least. If it's plant medicine or physical danger, shocking the system with heat, cold, salt, isolation. There's certain things that I feel like they were important for me to do at the time, but I might not have done them again that same way. If someone else were to do them, I'd say less of this, more of that, take these precautions. And certain things I'd say, you know what, I did it. It was kind of cool, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's too much, because sometimes these practices can be so intense that the one is that if it's too intense, it can just frighten someone to such a degree that they walk away from the whole process altogether. And that's a tragedy, to be discouraged at that level. The other much more important problem is that if you open the mind too fast and it loses its connection to the consensual reality too quickly, you can just lose your mind in a medical sense, in a dangerous way. And I've seen that happen. It's very unpleasant to witness, and I'm sure it's extremely unpleasant to experience. I've been very fortunate not to have any extended experiences of that nature, but I've seen it, and it's just something that I'm very critical of the certain medicine communities that don't acknowledge the importance and the value of easing the mind open. And in the bigger picture of that theme, having impatience with the way that you're growing, it's not loving. And that was a huge part of my personal process, was to see that rushing myself to become more aware, more spiritual, more anything, not accepting myself for where I am right here in this moment is actually an unkindness that I was delivering to myself over and over and over again, saying, you are not good enough yet. And so that's not to say that we don't all have work to do, because we do, but to do it in a gentle and loving way with the intention of becoming happier and more authentic, as opposed to you're not good enough now. And that change in perspective is very important. It's very important for me. So I'd like to talk about what shamanism is really about for me. So in culture at large, we have an idea of what a shaman is. A lot of times, if you say the word, people will think of somebody who wears feathers, and they have maybe like some paint on their face, and they are shrouded in mystery and all these things. That it's very, attractive in a certain sense, but I know shaman that wear suits, and the outward presentation of someone has actually very little to do with their connection to spirit. And that's what I would say being a shaman actually is the focus on connecting with the inner being. And I'll use that term. I could also say God or soul or ancestors or life. All these ways that we choose to turn inward and connect with that higher power in ourselves. It's that motivation that then I would say determines someone acting as a shaman. That it's a way of describing someone's behavior. It's not a title. You're not a shaman as if someone's like a policeman or a president. You're a shaman as in someone's like actively and consciously connecting with their inner knowledge. And so there are no restrictions or requirements for how you present yourself to the world, because your relationship to the world is secondary to your relationship with yourself. Let's see. So the practice of shamanism in connecting with yourself it's something that I think a lot of people they don't realize how much work it is, because you're always on call, you're always on the clock, and that's this the idea that you can kind of relax and take indulgences. All the various ways that people escape, if it's sex, drugs, alcohol, television, gambling, all these things, ways that you would in a previous part of your life feel, well, I'm just relaxing. It doesn't cut it anymore. And the reason why is because as you more finely tune your awareness, all these little things that you do to distract yourself become very noticeable in how much they dull the blade. And so it's kind of like if you're as an example, if you eat poorly your whole life, then on one day you just eat an entire bag of potato chips, you might not notice. But if you're eating clean, healthy food your entire life, and then you eat a whole bag of potato chips, it's going to make you sick. It's like, well, there's nothing inherently evil about these potato chips. That doesn't make sense. But the departure from your baseline level of health makes that difference very uncomfortable. And so this is how I see it, in that the more finely tuned and focused you are, it's not that you can't have these indulgences. It's just that the cost of each one is so obvious and immediate that you start to lose interest. Um, and it's something that I think a lot of people are not really prepared for that, because it's hard to imagine, like, well, why would that cost me so much? Um, and it's a difficult thing to really wrap your mind around until you start experiencing it. That every single time, even when you it's not even an outward expression of indulgence. Just to fight with someone in your mind costs you enormous amounts of energy. It's unbelievable, and it happens all the time. It just you're driving and someone does something rude on the road, or you smile at someone and they give you a weird look back, and you might start to create a story, and you consume vast amounts of energy, um, diluting your awareness into fighting, having conflict with people. And so when you're accustomed to having all your resources available to you, then diluting it with this um, story generation, it's very obvious. Um, okay, that brings me to a major point that I'd like to make, that there's a lot of emphasis in the spiritual communities to just focus on opening the mind, and to talk to angels, and to connect with God, and speak with the land, and talk to trees, and all these really awesome, unbelievable, amazing. I cannot possibly imagine that this is actually true, but it is, and your heart just explodes with joy. Um, but there's so much emphasis on that there's much less emphasis on what it takes to sustain these types of perceptions. And so the way I imagine it is, like, I see all these people with a brick in each hand trying to swim. And what I mean by that is, there's there's emotional weight that people carry, and instead of letting go of that weight and just floating to the surface, and being able to comfortably and joyfully look around and appreciate the ocean, they're clawing at the surface of the water with these weights in their hands. And that, from my personal experience, that was why I insisted on going through such torturous experiences, forcing my mind to open, was because I didn't realize how critical it was to let go of the weight that was holding me. All you have to do, let it go, and you will float. It's very, very simple. It's very simple. It's so simple that we almost don't want it to be true. And so that's why the emphasis of forcing my head above the water at all costs shifted completely 180 degrees to letting go of everything that's holding me down. And that's why we do breath work. That's the whole purpose of breath work. It's, people have very, very exotic hallucinatory experiences connecting with angels and earth and ancestors and all that. And those experiences are amazing. I don't want to disregard them at all, and not to make anyone feel ashamed or embarrassed in any way. I mean, those are really profound, inspirational experiences. But that's not the point. The point is to let go of the accumulated weight in your system, so that this stuff that's so inspiring and novel becomes commonplace. That's the real goal. That's what I'd really love to see for the community, is not that people have to try to have spiritual experiences, but that they're just so light and open and free that the life is experienced as an ongoing spiritual experience. Um, and so that's been a big shift towards really developing people in a way that gets their roots deep in the earth, that they're very strongly grounded and secure. Because I do a lot of gardening, so I like to think of people as trees. If the crown of the tree is overdeveloped and the roots are not, what happens with just a little bit of wind? And this is why people, when they do, let's say, and I'll pick on ayahuasca right now, if people do too much ayahuasca and no integration, they lose their minds. And probably a lot of you have seen that, um, because there's just not enough counterbalancing development. And so my perspective now is not even to grow up as much as down or down as much as up, but to just grow down. Because when the roots are so strong and firm, holding the ground, there is nothing the tree can do but to open its canopy and to flower and fruit. You cannot stop it when there's so much energy coming up. And that's the way I'm trying to reorient the spiritual and healing community, is to focus on that, really strengthen the roots, and then everything else that you want to happen is just going to happen naturally. And you actually, it would be difficult for you to stop it when there's so much power coming through. How much time do I have?
Another 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I'll talk a little bit more, and I'll tell you a funny story. So one of the things that I think, in the maturing process of presenting yourself as a healer, that's particularly difficult for me, and I think is prohibitive for a lot of people. Um, my mentors, a lot of you know Nigel Patterson, he was telling me at one point that listening is the hardest thing to do. And I thought, that is so right. I love just to prefer talking and not listening. And, that's just so much more enjoyable. And so, really being present with someone and listening to them is the hardest thing to do, because you're just creating that space for them. And that's really important. But I think that there's actually one thing that's harder than that. And what's harder than that is to listen to someone's suffering and to not do anything about it. That, for me, is, I'm a natural rescuer, and I love people, and I want to help at any time. And to see someone unconsciously hurt themselves over and over again, and to just know that it's important for them to experience that suffering. It's like we see everyone as the baby chick, and we say, oh, that shell has to be discarded and thrown away so that the chick can survive. What we don't acknowledge is that shell itself, the human shell, it has a consciousness on its own, and the chick is not Michael. The chick is God. Michael is the shell, and so that cracking is a critical step in the birthing of divine consciousness on the planet. So when we say, oh, I need to stop this person's suffering, most of the time we don't say that just because we love somebody else. We say that because it's unbearable to see them hurt. Okay, I'm gonna try to tell a funny story now. Yeah.
Okay to continue?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. So this is my didgeridoo, and this is not my first one. My first one was much shorter. It was about this tall, and when I was doing, so I lived in Bali for a short period, and I was doing breath work, individual one-on-one breath work sessions with people, and I was only supposed to be there for a week. But I said, you know what? I'm so committed to doing breath work that if anybody wants it, anybody says I want some of this medicine, um, if they have money or they don't, I don't care. Just come over. Let's do this because that's critically important to me. I want to offer this. So what ended up being, I was supposed to just be there for, I don't know, 7 days, 10 days. I ended up staying for over 3.5 months because every single, not every single day, every few days, people just kept saying, "Oh, I heard you did a breathwork session with this and the results were amazing. So we want to come in and try it." Okay, fine. So I just kept staying and staying and staying and performing these ceremonies with people. And one of the things that I would do to kind of center myself and focus was to do the breathing with them as I'm moving around them. And I felt like that was important so that I could really get into that shamanic state with the participant. Well, the thing is, we always have people when they're doing breath work lay on the ground. And the reason for that is that your legs get wobbly and your orientation can start to slip. So what ended up happening was this woman was lying down, doing breath work, doing great, and I decided after maybe 20 minutes, okay, I need to get into it more. So so I start breathing up, and okay, I can feel the power rising, and then all of a sudden, I blacked out for a second, and I had the didge in my hand, the shorter didge. I blacked out. The didge hit the ground, and my head bunk off the didge, and then I fell on the ground. And I don't know how long I was out. And I looked around, and the floor was all tile. And I see blood splatter all over the floor. There's blood splatter on my arm, down the didge. And I'm like, I panic. I had no idea how long I was unconscious. And I look up on this platform, like on this bed thing, and the girl is just doing her breathing. And I was like, oh my God, like, she's so focused. I'm jealous. And and I was like, oh, she's still going. I feel okay. I don't know how long I've been out, but seems fine. So so I go to the bathroom real quick and I see that there's two slices like above and below my eyebrow. Like, it looks pretty bad, but it doesn't hurt, it's probably some shock. And like, okay, we can keep going. Because she already paid. And so I go back and we do a bit of like light touch body work, energy work. And but the blood is still flowing, not gushing. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was trickling. And so I was leaning over her, trying to, with my hand on her heart and like one on her stomach, but I could feel the blood is like trickling down, and I'm like, oh, this would be so terrible if I dripped on her. So as it's trickling, I'm like turning my head so the blood is like dripping across my face instead of on her. And as it comes here, I kind of go back this way, and I'm I'm just like zigzagging this blood on my face, and then eventually I'm like, oh, it's definitely gonna drip now. So I go back to the bathroom and I wash my face real quick, and I'm like, how bad is it? So I kind of pull here, and there's not much tissue here, so I could see the bone underneath it with the two splits. And like, oh, okay, then it was this interesting experience of like, am I being asked how committed to breath work I am right now? Should I just go to the hospital, or do I stay here and finish this session? And I'm like, am I being too spiritual? Am I overthinking it? Should I just go to the hospital? It's the reasonable thing, or is this a test? And I just like, you know what? I feel okay enough. I'm just going to keep going. So we did. An hour expires, and this poor woman, she sits up, she looks at me, she's like, "Oh my God, like what's going on with your face?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I fell, and I hit it." She's like, "Yeah, I heard you, but you said keep breathing, don't let the thoughts get in, keep breathing, keep breathing." So, she, she stayed focused, and I'm very proud of her. And then, luckily, my friend lived underneath where we were, and she took me to the hospital. And I have only great things to say about hospitals in Bali. I got stitches and shots and care, and it was like $65. It was amazing. Love that.
Almost as good as India. You're going to India.
Yeah.
So time,
yeah,
time
that's
springs.
that's the story. I just the tendency towards intensity and emotional heaviness can be really easy to fall into. There's a certain morbidity, but keeping track of lighter stories, keep the heart light. So anyway, thank you all for listening. I do have the books in the back if you want to check that out. And we will be doing a breath work here at 1:30 if you'd like to participate. Suggested donation is $40. Thank you. Oh, question? So, I went through that a lot with, alkalizing the blood and changing pH and CO2 content. Well, so this is the thing, is that this breathwork process of just there's tons and tons of science. Not all of it is connected in a coherent way, and so I let go of all of that because I don't really understand it. I don't know that changing the pH of my blood is going to open me to God. I don't really understand that.
Maybe he meant, what does it look like?
That's it.
Not the theory.
What I did is just so okay, so that's exactly it, is that the concept is nebulous at best. What we get is this breathing, that breathing, simple as that, over an extended period of time, by whatever miracle of nature, leads to consistently the unlocking and unbinding of emotional and psychological wounds. I don't know how that works, but it's so consistent, it's reliable, it's safe, it's effective compared to every other thing that I've ever done. I go through all of that in the book. Breathwork is far superior, and that's why we do it. That's why we share it. Yeah, I wish I could have a more coherent scientific answer, but even among people like Wim Hof, he gets refuted on various medical suppositions about it, and I actually don't really think that it's important. It's like, is it effective or not? When I drove here, I didn't think to myself, do I understand how the engine works? Do I need to know how the starter is going to trigger the thing and the combustion and all? No, I just push a button and get where I'm going. That's what I care about. I want it to be effective and safe. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
We don't have
no
too
time.
much time. You're
Okay.
welcome to ask Michael questions after the service. He's going to be here, and he's going to be doing that workshop.
Yep.
It's starting at 1:00. 1:30.
1:30.
1:30, and he promises not to bleed on you. So, thank you, Michael. I mean, that was amazing. I feel like I got in touch with something, and maybe that's because I just agreed with everything you say. Yay, about doing the inner work is really comes back to segue what I started out with. Like, if you want to help the planet, help yourself along the way first. I'm going to pass the cold bowl now for any donations that you might like to make, and we appreciate it to keep things going here at New Thought. And we have a lot of expenses, so just put in and bless whatever you've got, whether it's 2 cents or $200. So, Lance, if you could just play some melody music while the bowl goes around, and for the closing song, do you just play something else?
I think we could just do acapella. I don't really know the chords or how to lead it exactly.
Okay, so that'll work.
We could sing acapella.
Yeah. Coming up at the New Thought Center of Hawaii, of course, a Sunday service at 10 a.m. in person and live stream. You can check our New Thought website for the YouTube link, and the video stays up on YouTube all the time after this. We also have free childcare during this main service. Coming up the next 3 Sundays, on 5/22, we have Genevieve Brunette. She's speaking on brain health through Gurdjieff movement, a touch of sacrocranial. Music by Viboda. We're going to welcome back Viboda. It's been a long time since he's been with us. On 5/29 is Drew Womack. He's a good, very great musician and very funny. He's going to be doing both the program and music. And he actually, is a professional Nashville musician. He's pretty good. And his subject is agua vs water versus water, perception and separation. Thank you. On 6/5, Maria Christina Owl will be speaking on frequency healing for the chakra system. Monthly events. Our last Saturday, we have didn't you just have the dance this the last Saturday of every month? Expressive dance event, 4 to 6, hosted by Adriana Atento, and a suggested donation of $10. I guarantee you'll get lots of exercise if you come to that. And it's kind of like was called a static dance. That's on May 28th. The last Sunday of the month, we all bring our extra produce to give away after the service. The next one will be May 29th. Special event, May 15th, today, a great breath workshop by Michael Hemmat. That's from 1:30 to 3:30. We have a birthday card that we're sending to a previous presenter who's a great guy and a musician, and it'll be out here, and we can all sign that. Service opportunities, and thank you everybody who helped set up today and volunteered. We still need greeters, people to help set up and clean up, etc. Workshop facilitators. I'll be doing that with Michael today. You get to get in free, so come volunteer. We need anybody interested in planning a party, our 50th Jubilee activity for New Thought, where we want to celebrate our 50th anniversary. If you want to do up for any of this, speak to a board member. I'm a board member, and Pasha's a board member, and there's many board members here. Or just reply to the New Thought newsletter. And we do have a weekly e-newsletter where you can find out all the haps. So just sign the guest book over here on this little red table to receive the newsletter for your email. Also, over on this big long table over there with this lovely lady sitting behind it, Ramona, we have all these leftovers from a last week's benefit fundraiser for New Thought, and it's on the side table, and they're reasonably priced, fun, and all for sale. Thank you. And we're going to now close with our A Hawaii Aloha closing song, and I think we have to do it a cappella. So the words are up here. Okay. And the words are up here, and there's words over there on those banners. So you could just follow along.
Uhane, uha ivine, holi no au ina pono lani o. E Hawaii, aloha e. E haoli na o puio o Hawaii ne. Oli e, oli e, oli e, oli oli e. Mana ahe ahe makani e pamaine. Nege aloha, aloha Hawaii. E hao o nina o pio o Hawaii ne. Oli e, oli e, oli e, oli oli e. Mana ahe ahe makani apa mai ne. Maya he aloha no Hawaii. Ma ke aloha no Hawaii.
All right, zippity doodah. Thank you all for coming. I love you so much for being here. Keep coming back and help form this into what you think it should be.